Hello everyone, my name is Seth. Today I'm going to give you my review of Novocaine. Novocaine is an action comedy that came out earlier this year. I saw the trailers. I thought it looked pretty interesting. Thought it looked like a fun action film. So I was looking forward to seeing it. Finally got around to watching it. And unfortunately, it wasn't quite as fun as the trailers made it out to be. But before we go any farther, go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. Share this video around with any friends or family. It could really help the channel grow, and it would absolutely make my day. Novocaine stars Jack Quaid and Amber Midthunder. I'm sure you've seen Jack Quaid in plenty by now. He's been in a lot of stuff, and he's awesome. And you might recognize Amber Midthunder from Prey. But in this film, we follow Nate. When the girl of Nate's dreams is kidnapped, he turns his rare physical condition, where he can't feel pain, into an unexpected advantage in the fight to rescue her. So I think this sets up really a ton of potential. I think this is a really fun premise to an idea for an action film, but this really just kind of ends up seeming like your average, whatever, just run-of-the-mill action film. But I think it had the potential to be so much more. Really, there's not a lot of bad here. It's not like, oh, this part of the movie was horrible or this was terrible. It's just everything was average. There's not like a ton of really good positives to talk about either. It's just really everything was just kind of right down the middle and average. The story, the characters, the action, the villain, even the comedy, it all just is very much so average. I really like Jack Quaid as an actor. I think he's very charismatic. I think he's funny, but I don't really think they leaned enough on his skill as an actor in this. I don't really think they leaned into the comedy that he could give as much as they should have. Like I mentioned, the idea for the story is really cool. You take this average, kind of nerdy guy who has this rare condition where he can't feel pain, and he uses that for his advantage in an action setting. That's just a really cool idea. And it really does seem like it could be like the origin story of like a superhero, or just a beginning point for like a new action franchise. But I don't think they execute on it well enough. Like I already kind of mentioned, the story is just average. It's kind of whatever. You've seen it before. I was able to predict basically everything in the story. I will say there is one twist in the story about halfway through the film, and the twist is interesting, but I think the twist only gets you because there's not any kind of hint toward this twist. I think the best twists are the ones that when you're watching the film, you don't see coming, but when you go back and you think about it or you rewatch the film, you can see the line, you can connect the dots, but you don't get that here. I understand it's hard to do a good twist, but this one does kind of just come out of nowhere. I give them credit for trying to throw something interesting in there like that. And it's an interesting twist that could mean a lot for the story and for the characters, but I don't really think it was executed that well. They could have led up to that twist better. But like I mentioned, other than that twist, you kind of can get where this whole film is going to go. And the ending to me gets a bit bloated. I'm not going to spoil anything just in case you want to go watch this for yourself, but I feel like it kind of expanded to this more over the top kind of cliche action film ending that I don't really think fits the rest of the film. At one point, it kind of just felt like, oh, we're still doing this. We need to go ahead and wrap it up, please. I feel like they end up taking themselves and the story a bit too seriously. It's supposed to be an action comedy, but it doesn't really quite feel that way. It feels just like an average action film that has a couple of jokes here and there. They don't really lean into how funny the situation can be. You got this kind of nerdy guy who works at a bank who gets himself involved in this criminal scheme, and oh, just by the way, he can't feel any pain. They really should have leaned into the comedy of this situation more. And I'm not saying just like make Deadpool, but I think the tone of Deadpool actually kind of would fit the premise of this story. Obviously, don't copy Deadpool because your character is different, the world is different. But I think the tone of Deadpool would honestly fit the story a little bit better. They also try to have a couple of these characters be, just the whatever kind of quirky characters with little funny one-liners, and I don't really think that it fits. The film almost treats itself a little bit too seriously for those really to hit for me. And I feel like they could have done a lot better job establishing and developing specifically the relationships between characters. We go from Nate having a crush on Sherry for a few months to them having one date, and then literally the next day, he ends up stealing a cop car and going after her after she is kidnapped. I feel like we definitely need a lot more there. And all of that takes place in the first 20-ish minutes, I think. The characters aren't developed enough, and especially the relationships between these characters aren't developed enough. And we really don't get to know these characters all that well either. We spend most of the time in this film with Nate, and even now I'm kind of struggling on words to use to describe him. I guess the only thing I can really come up with is that he's just kind of a nerdy guy, but he's kind of charismatic, but he seems like a very nice person. That's kind of all we get. It just kind of seems like he's your average white guy protagonist. And the main villain, played by Ray Nicholson, there's not really any depth or nuance to that character at all. He's just your run-of-the-mill kind of mustache-twirling action movie villain. Now, even though they might not have a ton to work with character-wise, I think all of the actors do a solid job with their performances. The performances across the board we're all pretty good. They're solid. I really don't have any complaints there. The three standouts are Jack Quaid, Amber Midthunder, and Ray Nicholson. I think the action as a whole, kind of like the rest of the movie, is pretty average. I feel like you do get lost in the action every once in a while. The editing wasn't really bad. It just wasn't really all that good, and there's a few times in the action sequences where you can kind of lose where characters are in the space. They do use some creative camera work every once in a while, and I really enjoyed that. That was probably some of my favorite parts of the film. I just wish they used it more. It would just help give the film more style, and it really needs that. As it stands, it's just a average run-of-the-mill action film in terms of the editing and cinematography. So I wish they threw in a few more of those creative shots. And the action as a whole isn't really anything super special as the choreography is concerned. The fight choreography is just all right. It's serviceable for an action film. There's a couple times in the film where they actually make pretty cool use of Nate not being able to feel any pain, but I think they should have leaned into that a little bit more than what they did. This movie actually does kind of remind me a little bit of Love Hurts, the film I reviewed starring Ke Huy Quan earlier this year. Both of those two films do excel in different ways. I think the idea for Novocaine is really, really cool. I think that's honestly kind of a better premise for the story than in Love Hurts, but I think Love Hurts definitely executes on the action a lot better than they do here. Jack Quaid and Ke Huy Quan are both good, but if I'm comparing the two films, I have to give the slight edge to Ke Huy Quan just because he's just so incredibly charming and charismatic. So overall, Novocaine just ended up being a, say it with me everyone, run-of-the-mill and average action comedy. It does have a great premise though. There's a couple cool things here and there, but most of it is just kind of whatever. There's not really anything here to hate, but there's also not really anything here to love either. It's literally right down the middle on everything, so I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 5. That's it. That's my review of Novocaine. Have you seen this film? Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. You can follow me on social media pretty much anywhere at CinemaSeth, and I'll see you next time.